The tray slipped from Olivia Carter's hands. Coffee splashed across the polished marble floor. Every conversation inside the billionaire's private office stopped, but Olivia didn't even notice. Her eyes were locked on a photograph hanging behind the CEO's desk. The smile, the eyes, the small scar above the left eyebrow. She had seen that face thousands of times growing up, every birthday, every Christmas, every night before bed. It was the only photograph her grandmother had left her. Her voice trembled before she even realized she was speaking. "Sir, why is my grandfather standing in your office?" Silence, the billionaire froze. The pen slipped from his fingers and rolled across the desk. For a long second, he simply stared at her. Then, his face lost every bit of color. He slowly stood up. His board members exchanged confused looks. One executive reached for the fallen coffee tray. The billionaire raised a hand without taking his eyes off Olivia. "Leave us." Nobody moved. His voice came again, calm, cold, final. "Everyone out now." Within seconds, the directors, the lawyers, security, and every employee quietly left the office. The heavy doors clicked shut. Now there were only three things inside the room: Olivia, the billionaire, and the old photograph on the wall. The billionaire walked toward it with slow, careful steps. His fingers brushed against the frame as if he hadn't touched it in years. Without turning around, he asked quietly, "What's your full name?" "Olivia Carter." He closed his eyes. "And your grandfather's name?" She swallowed, "Samuel Carter." The billionaire's shoulders stiffened. For several seconds, he didn't say a word. When he finally looked back at her, there was unmistakable pain in his eyes, not surprise, not confusion. Pain, the kind a person carries for decades. Then he whispered something that made Olivia's heart stop. "If you're Samuel Carter's granddaughter." He paused, struggling to finish the sentence. "Then everything you've believed about your family for the last 20 years is a lie." Olivia couldn't breathe. The billionaire remained standing beside the portrait, his hand still resting lightly on the golden frame. Outside the glass walls of the executive office, she could see employees pretending to work while secretly watching through the blinds. Inside, the silence felt heavier than words. Finally, the billionaire walked back to his desk. He didn't sit immediately. Instead, he opened a biometric drawer hidden beneath the polished walnut surface. A small green light flashed. Click. The drawer slid open. Inside, there wasn't cash. There weren't company documents. There was only one old leather folder. The edges were cracked, the corners faded by time. It looked as though someone had opened it hundreds of times, then spent years trying never to look at it again. He carried it to the table between them. His movements were unusually careful, almost respectful. Olivia watched him place the folder down. Her heartbeat echoed in her ears. Without opening it, he looked directly at her. "When was the last time you saw your grandfather?" She frowned. "I never did." His expression tightened. "My grandmother said he died before I was born. Heart attack. Small town in Oregon. We never even had a funeral." The billionaire lowered his eyes. "So, they told you that version too?" Olivia blinked. "What do you mean, that version?" Instead of answering, he slowly opened the folder. The very first photograph stole the air from her lungs. It showed two young men standing in front of a tiny warehouse with a hand-painted company sign. One of them looked exactly like the billionaire, only 25 years younger. The other man was Samuel Carter, her grandfather, laughing, one arm around his best friend. The date printed in the corner read, May 12, 1998. Olivia picked up the photograph with trembling hands. "I've never seen this before." The billionaire smiled sadly. "Because someone spent 22 years making sure you never would." He carefully removed another photograph. This one showed dozens of engineers celebrating around folding tables. Samuel stood in the center, holding a blueprint. Everyone else was looking at him like he was the smartest person in the room. He wasn't an ordinary mechanic. The billionaire said quietly, he wasn't a factory worker. He wasn't even an employee. Olivia stared at him. Then, "Who was he?" The billionaire took a long breath. Then he answered, "He was my partner. My closest friend, and the man who built the technology that made this company worth nearly $18 billion. Olivia froze. 18 billion. She almost laughed, not because it was funny, because it sounded impossible. "My grandmother cleaned hotel rooms for 30 years. We lost our house when I was 12. I worked double shifts just to pay her medical bills." She looked back at the photographs. "If my grandfather helped build all this." Her voice cracked. "Why were we living like that?" The billionaire didn't answer immediately. Instead, he reached deeper into the folder, this time. He placed an old newspaper on the table. The headline read, "Local inventor missing after mountain accident." Olivia recognized the name instantly. Samuel Carter. Her stomach tightened. "My grandmother showed me this article." The billionaire nodded. "I know. But she never showed you what came after." He unfolded another document, a federal investigation notice, stamped, classified, never released publicly. Olivia's hands began to shake. "This. I was hidden for 22 years. The billionaire looked directly into her eyes. Because Samuel Carter didn't disappear by accident. The room suddenly felt colder. Every tiny sound, the ticking clock, the distant elevators. The rain against the windows became painfully loud. Olivia barely managed to whisper, "What are you saying?" The billionaire leaned forward. His voice dropped almost to a whisper. "I'm saying, someone didn't steal your grandfather's money. They stole his entire life." Before Olivia could ask another question, someone knocked once on the office door, 3 slow knocks. The billionaire's face changed instantly, not fear, recognition. He looked toward the door, then back at Olivia. "They're earlier than I expected." Olivia's heartbeat stopped. "Who's here?" The billionaire didn't answer. Instead, he quietly closed the folder, stood up, and said 7 words that made every hair on her arms stand up. "Whatever happens next, don't tell them your name." The knock came again, 3 slow, deliberate taps, not loud, not impatient. The kind of knock that belonged to someone who expected the door to open. The billionaire's eyes never left the entrance. His jaw tightened. He spoke so quietly Olivia almost didn't hear him. "Stay behind me." The office door opened before anyone answered. A tall man in an expensive navy suit stepped inside. Late 50s, silver hair, perfect posture. A smile that looked practiced instead of genuine. He wasn't carrying a briefcase. He wasn't carrying paperwork. He carried confidence. The confidence of someone who believed he belonged in every room he entered. "Sorry to interrupt," he said warmly. "I heard the meeting ended early." His eyes landed on Olivia, just for a second, but it was enough. Something changed in his expression, not surprise, calculation. Like he was trying to remember where he'd seen her before. The billionaire answered calmly, "We're busy." "I can see that." The man smiled again, "But the board is waiting downstairs." His attention returned to Olivia. "And who might this be?" Before Olivia could answer, the billionaire spoke first. "She's temporary staff." The man nodded slowly. "I didn't ask you." His eyes never left Olivia. "What is your name, sweetheart?" Olivia remembered exactly what the billionaire had whispered. "Don't tell them your name." She forced a small smile. "Olive." The lie came out smoother than she expected. The man studied her face for one long moment. He didn't blink. Then he laughed softly. "Nice to meet you, Olive." He turned toward the billionaire. "We'll continue this later." As he reached the doorway, he stopped, without looking back. He said something that made the billionaire's face lose all color. "I never liked that portrait. Some memories should stay buried." Then he walked away. The office became silent again. The billionaire didn't move until the elevator doors outside closed. Only then. He locked the office door himself. He pulled every blind shut. Turned on a small white noise machine sitting beside the bookshelf. Olivia frowned. "What is happening?" Instead of answering, he walked to the portrait, lifted it off the wall. Olivia's eyes widened. There was a hidden safe behind it. A safe no visitor would ever know existed. He entered a 6-digit code. The heavy steel door clicked open. Inside, there wasn't jewelry, there wasn't cash, there wasn't a gun, there was another photograph. This one was different. It showed 4 people standing together outside the same little warehouse from years ago. A young billionaire, her grandfather, the silver-haired man who had just left the office, and a woman Olivia had never seen before. Everyone was smiling. Everyone looked like family, except someone had drawn a thick black X across the silver-haired man's face. Olivia looked up. "Who is he?" The billionaire answered immediately. "His name is Victor Lang. He was our chief financial officer. My closest advisor, until he betrayed all of us." Olivia stared at the photograph. "If he betrayed you, why is he still working here?" The billionaire gave a bitter smile. "Because 22 years ago, I couldn't prove what he had done." He placed another document on the desk. A handwritten partnership agreement. 4 signatures. One belonged to Samuel Carter. One belonged to the billionaire. One belonged to Victor Lang. The 4th had been completely torn off. Someone had deliberately ripped that section away. Olivia touched the damaged paper carefully. Olivia clutched the leather folder against her chest. Her pulse pounded so hard, she could barely hear herself think. The billionaire didn't waste another second. Come with me. He pressed a button beneath his desk. A hidden door beside the bookshelf unlocked with a quiet click. Olivia stared. I've worked in this building for 8 months. I never knew this existed. Almost nobody does. He opened the concealed passage. A narrow hallway stretched behind the executive offices. No decorations, no windows, only soft ceiling lights and reinforced steel doors. This was built years ago, he said while walking quickly, in case confidential research ever had to leave the building unnoticed. Olivia followed closely. Have you used it before? He hesitated, only once. When? The day your grandfather disappeared. The words hit her like ice water. She looked at him. You helped him escape. The billionaire stopped walking. For a long moment, he simply looked at the floor. I thought I did. They reached a small private archive room. He unlocked another security door using his fingerprint. Inside, rows of fireproof cabinets stretched from floor to ceiling. Every drawer was labeled by year. He walked straight to one cabinet, 2002. His hand paused on the handle. This cabinet hasn't been opened in almost 20 years. He slowly pulled the drawer open. Dust floated into the air. Inside were dozens of sealed evidence envelopes, old hard drives, paper files, mini DV tapes, even disposable cameras. Olivia looked around in disbelief. You kept all this? I kept everything, because one day, I hoped someone from Samuel's family would walk through that office door. His voice broke slightly, and today, you did. He removed a thick envelope marked, Private, do not destroy. The seal had never been broken. He placed it on the table. You should open it. Olivia's fingers trembled as she carefully peeled back the old adhesive. Inside, there was only one item, a small black notebook. The leather cover was badly worn. She opened the first page. Her breath caught instantly. The handwriting. She recognized it immediately. It matched the birthday cards her grandmother had saved for years. Samuel Carter, her grandfather. The very first sentence read, if you're reading this. Then someone finally found the truth I couldn't protect. A tear rolled down Olivia's cheek. She turned another page. Every page contained sketches, equations, personal notes, and names she had never heard before. One name appeared again and again and again. Victor Lang, sometimes underlined, sometimes circled, sometimes followed by only one word. Liar. The billionaire leaned over her shoulder. I've never read it. Olivia looked up in surprise. You never opened it. He slowly shook his head. No. Samuel handed it to me the night before he disappeared. He said, the billionaire swallowed hard. If anything happens to me, only my family has the right to know what's inside. I made him that promise. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Olivia continued turning the pages. Then something slipped from between them, a folded photograph. It landed face down on the table. She picked it up carefully and turned it over. Her heart stopped. It wasn't an old company picture. It wasn't a family photo. It had clearly been taken in secret. Victor Lang was shaking hands with 2 men outside an abandoned warehouse. One of them wore a government security badge. The other carried a black briefcase across the bottom. Samuel had written 3 chilling words in blue ink. They're buying silence. Olivia looked up. What does this mean? The billionaire's expression turned grim. It means that your grandfather figured out the conspiracy before any of us did. Before either of them could say another word. The lights in the archive suddenly flickered. Once, twice. Then, the entire room went dark. Emergency lights flashed red. A mechanical voice echoed through the hallway. Security lockdown initiated. The billionaire looked toward the steel door. His face hardened. No. He's already inside the building. Olivia tightened her grip on her grandfather's notebook. Who? The billionaire answered without taking his eyes off the locked door. Victor Lang. And then someone began slowly knocking. From the other side of the steel door, 3 slow knocks. The exact same pattern as before. The knocking stopped. Silence. Not ordinary silence. The kind that makes every heartbeat sound too loud. Olivia instinctively stepped backward. The billionaire quietly closed the notebook and slipped it inside his jacket. Stay behind me. The red emergency lights continued flashing. The reinforced steel door remained locked. Then, a calm voice echoed through the hallway speaker. Mr. Hayes, this is only a routine security check. Neither of them moved. The billionaire smiled bitterly. Victor never changes. He always sounds calm, right before he destroys someone's life. The voice came again. If you're inside, please unlock the archive. Olivia whispered, does he know we're here? He knows enough. The billionaire walked to another cabinet and removed a slim black laptop. No company network. No internet. No tracking. He placed it inside Olivia's backpack. If anything happens, this leaves the building. What is it? The complete history of your grandfather's work. The original patents. The ownership records. Everything Victor spent 22 years trying to erase. Olivia looked at the backpack. It suddenly felt impossibly heavy. Why give it to me? Because if I carry it, they'll come after me. If you carry it, they'll underestimate you. Before Olivia could answer, the emergency lights turned green. The lockdown ended. A soft chime echoed through the archive. The billionaire frowned. That's impossible. They never end a lockdown this quickly. He cautiously opened the steel door. The hallway was empty. Not a single security officer, not a single employee. Only one object lay on the floor. A white envelope, no stamp, no name, just one handwritten word. Olivia, she froze. How? I've never told anyone I was here. The billionaire didn't touch the envelope. You open it. Her hands shook as she unfolded the paper inside. Only one sentence had been written. Ask your grandmother what really happened on October 9th, 2002. Nothing else. No signature, no fingerprints, no clue. The billionaire looked at the date. His expression changed immediately. No. Olivia looked up. What? That's impossible. What happened on October 9th? He stared at the paper for several long seconds. That's the day. Your grandfather came back. Olivia felt every muscle in her body freeze. What? He returned to the city. I met him for exactly 17 minutes. She couldn't speak. You met him. The billionaire nodded slowly. He wasn't injured. He wasn't running. He wasn't hiding. He came to warn me. About Victor. About the board. About someone inside our own company. Then why didn't you stop him? Pain crossed the billionaire's face. Because before he left. He made me promise something. What promise? He said, if anything happens to me tonight, protect my family, even if they spend the rest of their lives hating me. Olivia's eyes filled with tears. My grandmother knew. I don't know. But after tonight, I think she knows far more than either of us imagined. 1 hour later, rain covered the windshield as Olivia drove across Portland toward the small apartment where her grandmother had lived for 30 years. Neither of them spoke much. The billionaire kept staring out the window, almost as if he were preparing himself for a conversation he'd been waiting 2 decades to have. When they arrived, the apartment lights were on. The television was playing softly inside. Her grandmother opened the door with a warm smile. Olivia. Then she noticed the billionaire standing behind her. The smile disappeared instantly. The color drained from her face. Her grocery bag slipped from her hands. Apples rolled across the porch for several seconds. Nobody said a word. Finally, the elderly woman whispered a name, not the billionaire's, not Olivia's grandfather's, a completely different name. One Olivia had never heard before. Michael. The billionaire closed his eyes. He hadn't heard that name in 22 years. Very quietly, he answered. I never thought you'd recognize me. The old woman began crying before either of them stepped inside. Olivia stood frozen. She looked from her grandmother to the billionaire and back again. Confusion filled her face. You. She swallowed hard. You two already know each other. Her grandmother looked at the billionaire, then whispered the words that changed everything. He wasn't just your grandfather's business partner. She wiped away a tear. He was my brother. Olivia couldn't process what she'd just heard. She stared at her grandmother, then at Michael Hayes, the billionaire who had built one of America's largest technology companies, then back again. Her voice barely came out. He's your brother. Her grandmother nodded slowly. Tears rolled silently down her face. Yes. Olivia stepped backward. No. That can't be true. You've never mentioned him. You never told me our family had anyone else. Her grandmother lowered her eyes. Because 22 years ago, I lost both of them. The husband I loved, and the brother I grew up with. The apartment fell silent. Outside, rain tapped gently against the windows. Michael spoke quietly. I didn't know where Alina was. I searched for years. I hired investigators. I checked public records. I even attended Samuel's memorial service from the back row. Because I thought she blamed me. Eleanor looked at him with tired eyes. I did. Michael didn't argue. You had every right. Olivia looked between them. I'm completely lost. Somebody please. Tell me the whole truth. Eleanor slowly walked toward the old wooden bookshelf in the living room. It was the same shelf Olivia had dusted every Saturday since she was 14. Family albums, old novels, a porcelain clock that hadn't worked in years. Nothing unusual, until Eleanor reached behind a worn leather Bible. Her fingers searched carefully, as if she had hidden something there long ago. She pulled out a small ivory envelope. The paper had turned yellow with age across the front. In familiar handwriting were only 3 words for Eleanor only. Olivia recognized the handwriting instantly. Samuel's, her grandfather's. Her hands trembled. Grandma. You've had this all these years. Eleanor nodded. I promised I'd never open it. Unless someone came asking the same question you asked today. She gently placed the envelope into Olivia's hands. I think. Today is that day. Olivia looked toward Michael. You've never seen this. He slowly shook his head. Never. I didn't even know it existed. Taking a deep breath, Olivia carefully broke the old wax seal. Inside, there was only one folded letter and one old photograph. She unfolded the photograph first. It showed 4 smiling people standing beside a lake. Samuel, Eleanor, Michael, and a little blonde-haired boy around 10 years old. Olivia frowned. Who's this? Neither Michael nor Eleanor answered. Instead, they both stared at the picture. Almost afraid of it, Olivia slowly unfolded the letter. The first sentence made every person in the room stop breathing. If you're reading this. Then I failed to keep my promise. She continued. Victor was never the man giving orders. Michael suddenly looked up. What? Olivia kept reading. Everyone believes Victor is the enemy. He isn't. He's afraid of the same person I am. The room became completely still. Olivia looked at Michael. I don't understand. Michael looked just as shocked. Neither do I. She read the next paragraph aloud. If anything happens to me, never look for Victor first. Find the boy in this photograph. Olivia's eyes moved back to the picture, the little blonde-haired boy. Smiling, holding Samuel's hand, she whispered, Who is he? Eleanor slowly sat down for the first time that night. She looked terrified, not emotional, terrified. She closed her eyes, then quietly said, His name is Nathan. Olivia frowned. I've never heard that name. You weren't supposed to. Michael stepped for several seconds. No one in the apartment moved. Nathan Carter, the little boy from the old photograph. The child Samuel had desperately tried to protect. The same boy who had disappeared more than 2 decades ago. And now, according to airport security, he had boarded a private jet with Victor Lang. Olivia looked at Michael. Who is Nathan? Michael didn't answer immediately. Instead, he sat down heavily in the dining chair. He suddenly looked 20 years older. When Samuel founded the company, Michael said quietly, There were only 4 of us. Samuel, me, Victor, and Nathan's father. Olivia frowned. You never mentioned another partner. Because... Michael looked toward Eleanor. We believed he died before the company even became successful. Eleanor slowly shook her head. No. We were told he died. Michael looked at her. What do you mean? She took a deep breath. The night Samuel disappeared, a man came to this apartment. He warned me never to tell anyone. But before he left, he accidentally said something. Olivia leaned forward. What? He said, Now both founders are finally gone. Michael's eyes widened. Both founders. He whispered the words to himself, but there were never 2 founders. There were 4. Eleanor nodded slowly. Exactly. The man made a mistake. He wasn't talking about Samuel. He was talking about someone the world was never supposed to know existed. The room fell silent. Marcus's voice came through the speakerphone. I just received the airport manifest. Michael looked up. Tell me. Marcus sounded confused. Victor Lang is listed. So is Nathan Carter. But what? There are only 2 passengers. Olivia frowned. I don't understand. Marcus continued. The pilot filed Nathan's age as 34. Michael's heart skipped. That can't be right. Nathan was 10 years old. 22 years ago. Marcus paused. Exactly. If he was 10 then, he'd be 32 today. Everyone froze. The age didn't match, only by 2 years. But in investigations, 2 years could mean everything. Olivia suddenly looked at the photograph again, then at Samuel's letter, then back at Michael. Wait. No, what? Michael asked. She pointed at the picture. This isn't Nathan. Everyone looked. Olivia's voice grew steadier. I've been staring at this photo for 10 minutes. Look closely. The boy isn't holding my grandfather's hand. He's holding. She stopped. Michael slowly stood, his face drained of color. My hand. Olivia nodded. Exactly. And look at the back. Michael carefully turned the old photograph over. Faded pencil writing covered the corner. Years had almost erased it. Marcus enlarged the image through a secure video call. The words slowly became readable. Michael and Noah, summer 1998. Michael stopped breathing. Noah. Olivia looked at him. Who's Noah? Michael whispered, my son. The apartment became completely silent. Olivia blinked. You have a son? Michael struggled to speak. I thought he died. Eleanor covered her mouth. Oh my God. Michael slowly sat back down. My wife and Noah were killed in a highway crash. That's what police told me. There wasn't enough left to identify. He stopped, his hands began shaking. They told me. Closed casket. Olivia looked at the photograph again, then at the airport manifest. Nathan Carter. She whispered, what if? Nathan never existed. Marcus answered immediately, I already checked. There is no birth certificate, no school records, no medical history, no social security number. Nothing. Olivia's heartbeat quickened, then the passport. Marcus finished her sentence, is fake. Michael looked toward the window. Rain continued falling over Portland, for the first time. He realized something terrifying. Victor hadn't escaped with Samuel's son. He hadn't escaped with Nathan Carter. He had escaped with the one child everyone believed had died 22 years ago. Michael whispered the words almost to himself. My son. He is alive. Before anyone could react. Marcus interrupted again. Michael. I hacked into the jet's filed destination. Where are they going? Marcus answered with 2 words that made the entire room go silent. Geneva, Switzerland. Michael looked at Olivia. His voice was calm, but his eyes weren't. If Victor gets there, we may never see Noah again. Nobody spoke for nearly a minute. Switzerland, another continent, another legal system, another chance for Victor Lang to bury the truth forever. Michael stood abruptly. We're leaving tonight. Marcus's voice came through the speaker. The company jet can be ready in 45 minutes. Olivia looked at her grandmother. You should stay here. Eleanor slowly shook her head. No. Her voice was firm. I stayed behind once. I won't do it again. Michael walked toward the window. The rain had finally stopped. 22 years ago, he had watched Samuel disappear. He had promised himself he would never lose another member of his family. He wasn't about to break that promise again. 14 hours later. Geneva. The city looked peaceful from the airplane window, crystal blue water, snow-covered mountains. Luxury hotels, perfect streets. Nothing about it suggested that the biggest secret of Michael's life had been brought here. Marcus was already waiting on the runway. He handed Michael a tablet. We've been tracking Victor's phone since he landed. Michael looked at the screen. A blinking red dot remained perfectly still. He hasn't moved. Marcus shook his head. No. Which means one of 2 things. Either he's hiding, or he wants us to find him. Olivia frowned. Why would anyone want that? Marcus answered quietly. To control where the confrontation happens. An hour later, their SUV stopped outside one of Geneva's oldest private banks. The building looked more like a museum than a financial institution. Marble columns, bronze doors, no signs, no advertisements, only silence. Michael looked at Marcus. You sure? Marcus nodded. Victor entered 12 minutes ago. But he never came out. Olivia looked around. Then he's still inside. Michael wasn't convinced. No. Victor never stays where people expect him to. Just then, an elderly security guard walked out of the bank. He noticed Michael. His expression immediately changed. You are Mr. Hayes. Michael nodded cautiously. The old guard reached into his jacket. Olivia instinctively stepped forward. Instead of a weapon, he pulled out a sealed envelope. He told me to give you this. Michael's heartbeat accelerated. Who? The guard answered calmly. The gentleman with silver hair. Victor. Michael opened the envelope. Inside, there was only a handwritten note. You're still asking the wrong questions. Nothing else. Marcus frowned. That's it. Michael turned the paper over, blank, then Olivia noticed something. Wait. She held the paper toward the sunlight. Faint writing appeared beneath the surface. Invisible ink, Marcus smiled. Lemon solution. Michael carefully read the hidden message. His face changed instantly. It read, if you want the truth, stop chasing Victor, find Noah before they do. Olivia looked up. They. Marcus quietly took the note. There it is. Michael frowned. What? Marcus pointed at the sentence. Victor didn't write I. He wrote, oh, they, meaning, Victor isn't acting alone. 2 hours later, Marcus finally traced the private jet. It hadn't remained in Geneva, it had only refueled. Its final destination wasn't Switzerland at all, it was northern Italy, a small lakeside town called Bellagio. Michael looked confused. Why Bellagio? Marcus zoomed into the satellite map. There, an isolated villa stood on a hill overlooking the lake, registered to an international foundation. The ownership trail disappeared after 3 shell companies. Marcus sighed. I've seen this before. What is it? The same people. The same pattern. They buy properties nobody questions. They hide money. They hide people. Olivia looked toward the villa on the screen. Somewhere behind those walls, the black SUV stopped a quarter-mile below the villa. Marcus killed the engine. No one spoke. The estate sat high above Lake Como, surrounded by ancient cypress trees and 12-foot stone walls. It didn't look like a prison. It looked like paradise, which made it even more dangerous. Marcus unfolded a drone from the back seat. Within seconds, the small aircraft lifted silently into the evening sky. The live video appeared on his tablet. 4 security guards, 2 black SUVs, thermal cameras, motion sensors. Michael frowned. That's not private security. Marcus nodded. No. That's military grade. The drone climbed higher. Then something appeared near the rear garden. A greenhouse, except it wasn't growing flowers. It was connected to the villa by an underground corridor. Marcus zoomed in. There. A man stepped outside carrying a tray of books. Gray hair, thin shoulders, simple clothes. He looked older than Samuel, but younger than Michael. Olivia leaned closer. Her breathing stopped. The way he tilted his head. The way he rubbed his thumb across his wedding ring. Exactly like the stories her grandmother used to tell, she whispered. Grandpa. Michael couldn't take his eyes off the screen. Samuel Carter was alive, not hiding, not running, living, like a man who had forgotten the outside world even existed. Olivia's eyes filled with tears. I have to go to him. Marcus grabbed her arm. No, he isn't alone. The drone zoomed farther. Another figure stepped into view. Victor Lang. He wasn't arguing. He wasn't threatening Samuel. They were drinking coffee together. Olivia frowned. What is happening? Michael looked just as confused. This makes no sense. If Victor kidnapped him, why are they sitting together? Marcus continued watching. Then Samuel suddenly looked toward the sky, toward the drone. His expression changed. He calmly picked up a folded newspaper, held it above his head, for exactly 3 seconds, then lowered it. Marcus froze. He just signaled us. Michael looked over. You understood that? Marcus nodded slowly. It wasn't random. It was Morse timing. He just said. Marcus swallowed. Don't come inside. Silence. Olivia stared at the screen. He knows we're here. Yes, Michael whispered, and he doesn't want us to rescue him. Before anyone could speak again, another black SUV entered the property. Its doors opened. 3 men stepped out. Expensive suits. No security badges. No company logos. One of them carried a silver briefcase handcuffed to his wrist. Samuel stood up immediately. Not because he was afraid, because he recognized them. Marcus quietly enlarged the image. One of the men handed Samuel several documents. Samuel refused to sign. Victor didn't force him. He simply looked disappointed. Then, the oldest man removed a fountain pen from his pocket, placed it gently on the table. Michael's face turned white. No. Olivia looked at him. What? Michael's voice shook. I know that pen. My father owned one exactly like it. Marcus looked confused. So, Michael barely managed to answer. It isn't a pen. It's an invitation. To what? Michael looked toward the villa, to Samuel, to Victor, then quietly said, it's how they recruit people. Olivia frowned. Recruit. Michael nodded. My father disappeared for almost a year when I was 17. When he came home, he told me one thing. He said, if anyone ever offers you a silver fountain pen. He stopped, his voice cracked. Run. The words hung in the air. Marcus suddenly received another alert. His tablet vibrated. He opened it. His expression changed instantly. Michael. What now? Marcus slowly turned the screen around. It wasn't satellite footage. It wasn't security footage. It was an old membership ledger recovered from a private archive in Zurich. The title across the top read, Founding Members. Only 4 names appeared. Michael Hayes' father, Victor Lang. A man named Edward Sinclair, and Samuel Carter. Olivia stared at the screen. No. My grandfather would never. Marcus interrupted quietly. Look closer. Besides Samuel Carter's name, someone had stamped one word in red ink. Declined. Michael exhaled slowly. He didn't join them. Marcus nodded. He refused. Olivia looked at Victor's name. Next to it, another red stamp. Active, her stomach turned. Everything suddenly made sense. Victor hadn't spent 22 years protecting Samuel. He'd spent 22 years trying to make him say yes, just then. Samuel looked directly toward the drone again. This time, he slowly wrote something on a sheet of paper. Held it toward the sky, and for one brief second, Marcus captured the image. 3 handwritten words, Don't trust Michael. The SUV fell completely silent. Olivia looked at the screen, then slowly turned toward the billionaire sitting beside her. For the first time, she wasn't sure who the real enemy was. Nobody spoke. Not Marcus, not Michael, not Olivia. The drone hovered silently above the villa on its screen. Samuel Carter's handwritten message remained frozen. Trust Michael. Olivia slowly lowered the tablet. Her eyes met Michael's. For the first time since this journey had begun, she stepped away from him. Michael noticed. The pain on his face was immediate. You think I lied to you? Olivia's voice was barely above a whisper. I don't know what to think anymore. Marcus didn't interrupt. He enlarged the image again. Samuel's handwriting was unmistakable. There was no mistake, no misunderstanding. Those 3 words had been written deliberately. Michael closed his eyes. When you've spent 20 years chasing the truth, he said quietly, you eventually discover that the truth doesn't always defend you. Olivia looked at him, then explain it. Michael nodded, I will. He took a slow breath. 22 years ago, Samuel didn't disappear because someone kidnapped him. Olivia frowned. What? He disappeared. Because I helped him. Silence. Marcus stared at him. You knew. Michael nodded once. I knew exactly where he went. Olivia felt her knees weaken. You lied to me. I lied to everyone. 22 years earlier, rain poured over Northern California, inside a tiny warehouse. Samuel Carter stood beside a whiteboard covered with equations. Michael paced the room. Victor Lang watched from the doorway. Samuel placed a stack of blueprints on the table. They're coming. Michael looked up. Who's coming? Samuel answered without hesitation. The people financing Victor. Victor immediately stepped forward. Careful. Samuel ignored him. They don't want the company. They don't want the patents. They want something much bigger. Olivia listened without blinking. Michael continued. The algorithm everyone thinks made us rich was never the real invention. Marcus slowly whispered. There was something else. Michael nodded. Samuel had secretly built a second technology, not faster, not more profitable, more dangerous. A communication system capable of bypassing every encrypted military network that existed in 2002. If sold, it could change governments, start wars, or end them. Samuel refused to release it. Victor didn't care about the money anymore, neither did the investors behind him. They wanted the prototype, nothing else. Michael's voice became quieter. The night Samuel disappeared, he burned every copy. Olivia looked confused. Every copy. Almost. Michael reached inside his coat, removed a small brass key. He placed it gently in Olivia's hand. There was one. Olivia stared at the key. What does this open? Michael smiled sadly. The only place Samuel ever trusted. Marcus suddenly interrupted. Movement. Everyone looked back at the drone feed. Inside the villa, Victor was arguing with the 3 men in suits. One of them slammed a briefcase onto the table. Samuel remained seated, completely calm. The oldest man opened the case. Inside were dozens of documents and one object. A small metal box. Michael's face lost all color. No. Marcus zoomed closer. The brass lock on the box matched the key resting in Olivia's hand. Samuel slowly shook his head. He refused to touch it. The oldest man smiled. Then he nodded toward Victor. Victor reached inside his jacket, pulled out a handgun. Olivia gasped. No. Samuel didn't move. He simply looked at Victor, like a father disappointed in his own son. Victor's hand shook. He couldn't pull the trigger. The old man became impatient. He took the gun himself, raised it toward Samuel. Marcus immediately lowered the drone. "We're out of time." Michael opened the SUV door. "We're going in." Marcus grabbed his arm. "There are armed guards everywhere." "I don't care." Olivia was already running. She sprinted through the trees toward the villa. Michael followed. Marcus cursed under his breath and ran after them. The first security guard saw them halfway across the lawn. "Stop." Nobody stopped. Another guard reached for his radio. Marcus tackled him before he could speak. Michael kicked the front door open. The sound echoed through the villa. Every person inside turned. Samuel looked up. For the first time in 22 years, father, daughter, brother, and betrayer stood in the same room. Victor slowly lowered his head. "It's over." The old man with the silver pen laughed softly. "You still don't understand." He pressed a small remote hidden inside his pocket. A loud mechanical click echoed beneath the floor. Marcus looked down. His eyes widened. "Everyone, get out." The villa had been rigged with explosives, and the countdown had already begun. 59, 58, 57. The red countdown reflected across the polished marble floor. Nobody moved for one frozen second. Every person in the room simply stared at the timer hidden beneath the staircase. Marcus reacted first. "It's pressure-wired. If we shoot it, it explodes immediately." The older man smiled. "You finally figured it out." Victor slowly stepped backward. His face had completely changed. The confidence, the arrogance, the manipulation were gone. Only exhaustion remained. Samuel looked directly at him. "You knew." Victor lowered his head. "I found out yesterday." Samuel's voice remained calm. "And you still brought me here." Victor closed his eyes. "I thought I could convince them to let you go." The older man laughed. "You actually believed that?" He looked toward Michael. "You still don't understand who you're fighting." Michael stepped forward. "No, I understand perfectly. You've spent 50 years stealing ideas, destroying families, and hiding behind people like Victor." The man's smile disappeared. "You think you've won?" He pressed another button on the remote. A massive steel door slammed shut behind them. Every exit locked. Marcus looked toward the windows. Bulletproof glass, no escape. The timer continued. 43, 42. Olivia suddenly remembered the brass key still clutched tightly in her hand. She looked toward the small metal box resting on the conference table. The lock matched perfectly. She ran toward it. Michael shouted, "Olivia, wait." She ignored him. Her trembling hands pushed the key into the lock. Click. The lid slowly opened. Inside, there wasn't money. There wasn't a hard drive. There wasn't military technology. Only one envelope. And one old cassette tape. Everyone stared. The older man's expression changed instantly. "No." Samuel smiled for the first time. "You spent 22 years chasing the wrong invention." The old man looked horrified. "Impossible." Samuel picked up the cassette tape. There never was a military algorithm. Marcus frowned. "What?" Samuel looked at Olivia. "I invented that story." Silence. Victor slowly looked up. "You." Samuel nodded. "I knew they were watching us. So I created something they would never stop chasing." Michael couldn't believe what he was hearing. The algorithm. It never existed. Samuel smiled sadly. "No. The real invention." He gently held up the cassette. Was the truth. 22 years earlier, Samuel had secretly recorded every meeting, every threat, every illegal payment, every conversation, every signature, every name, hundreds of hours of evidence. He knew no court would believe one man. So he created the myth of a priceless technology. He gave corrupt people something to chase, while hiding the only thing that could actually destroy them, their own voices. Marcus whispered, "My God, the entire conspiracy that was built around a lie." Samuel nodded. "A lie. That protected the evidence." The older man's face twisted with rage. He lunged toward Samuel before anyone could react. Bang, a single gunshot echoed through the villa. Time seemed to stop. Victor looked down. Blood spread across his white shirt. He had stepped between Samuel and the bullet. The older man stared in disbelief. "Victor." Victor slowly fell to his knees. Samuel rushed forward. "Why?" Victor gave a weak smile. "Because." He coughed, and for 22 years, I kept choosing fear. He looked toward Olivia, but she deserved a one person to finally choose courage. His eyes closed. The remote control slipped from his hand. Marcus grabbed it immediately. It's deactivated. Michael looked at the countdown. 14. 13. It's still running. Marcus examined the device. There has to be a second trigger. Samuel suddenly remembered. The basement. There are 2 control panels. Marcus sprinted downstairs. Michael followed. Olivia stayed beside her grandfather for the very first time in her life. She reached out and held his hand. Neither of them spoke. Neither of them needed to. Samuel smiled through tears. I'm sorry. I missed your birthdays. I'm sorry. I wasn't there when you graduated. I'm sorry. I wasn't there when your parents. His voice broke completely. Olivia squeezed his hand. We still have time. Samuel looked into her eyes. Do we? Below them, Marcus ripped open the electrical panel. Hundreds of wires, 2 digital modules, 1 final countdown. 6. Michael looked around desperately. Which wire? Marcus answered honestly, I don't know. The timer reached 05. Then Michael noticed something. Every wire was black except one, a faded blue wire. The same shade Samuel had always used to mark his original engineering sketches. Michael smiled. You left us one last clue.